Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. Then I had to ask one of our admins to give us a translation. I received this message a couple of days ago, then I posted it on our other platform. The message reads like this: Hello my brother, how are you? Can you please post for me as anonymous? I have a message that I want to share with you. This confession was given to me by my parents. The rituals that they did on me ended up on me becoming a very successful business person. Everything that I touch, it immediately turns into gold. But this gift that was given to me by my ancestors, it was not meant to be my gift that I was born with, but my parents stole this gift from my cousin brother. All of these riches that I have today, they were supposed to be his riches, but my parents did some evil rituals that made him to lose his mind, and the ancestors then gave his gifts to me. And even now, my ancestors do not even realize that me and my parents, we do this ritual each and every year, because just before November, we have to perform a certain ritual so as to make our ancestors to look the other way. In our culture, we believe that when it is November, that is when our year ends, and all of our ancestors, they go back to their resting places. So no rituals or marriages are supposed to take place in the month of November. So my parents told me that just before November, I had to slaughter a certain animal and pour some brewed beer on top of one of our ancestors' grave that is there back in our village. So we come from a family of tribal chiefs. So most of our ancestors' grave, they are still there. So what me and my parents do is that when we go there in secret, we then slaughter that animal. Then I would then pour some beer on top of our ancestors' grave so that they won't take back this gift that we stole from my cousin brother. There are other rituals that only my mother can perform. Each and every year in October, I have to leave my wife and my kids behind here in South Africa and quickly rush back home for that ritual. My greatest fear right now is that if I were to fail to perform this ritual, and if I do not perform that ritual, my businesses will fail, because this is what one of my mother's friend told her, who is a witch doctor. That witch doctor told my parents that if I do not perform that ritual, then my ancestors will realize the mistake that they did. Then they will take that ritual. Then they will take that gift far away from me. Then my businesses will fail. And if my businesses will fail with the way that I have spoiled my South African wife, I don't know if she will be able to stay with me if I would ever go broke. Growing up in the village, we were people who were far from being rich. My parents were so poor. That we had to depend on our uncle who was in the city just for survival. As I grew older, my mother became more open with me, and she told me a life story from the time that she met my father, who was working at that time as an electrician. But soon after they had met, my father was then fired from his job. It was like him meeting with our mom had brought bad luck on him. When my father married my mother, our mom told us that she was then hated by the whole family. The other reason why she was hated, it was because my mom was someone who really used a lot of herbs. So there was too much tension between our mother and our grandmother, since our grandmother was someone who was said to be a very devoted Christian. And as for our mother, even now, we all know that our mom, she has this other thing that in Shona we call nyengerekezi. I don't know if we can say if this is a curse or if it is a gift, but when you have this thing that is called nyengerekezi in Shona, what happens to you is that if you hold a newborn baby in your arms, the spiritual energy that will be transferred from your hands to that baby might end up killing the baby or making the baby so sick. The one who can only heal this kind of a curse is the one who also have the same gift that is called nyengerekezi. So even when my wife gave birth, we fought so hard with my wife because she wanted us to go back to Zim, because at that time we were building on one of our properties that we have there in Zim. So I gave her a lot of excuses because I didn't want us to go with our newborn baby back to Zim. And the more that I refused without giving her any proper explanation, she got so angry with me, thinking that maybe back home I have a second wife. But how could I ever tell my own wife that if my mother was going to hold our child when our child was still a newborn baby, our baby will die? Even now, she doesn't even know why whenever my mother visits us here in South Africa, she always has an excuse as to why she can't hold her grandchildren, especially when the child is still below the age of 9 months. It is a secret that troubles me always. Whenever my mom visits us here in South Africa, she will pretend as if she has flu or any kind of a sickness, and she will say that I can't hold the baby because I don't want the baby to get sick. But the real reason behind this that my wife doesn't know is that my mom, she has this kind of a curse that is called nyengerekezi. If she were to hold our baby might die if my mom doesn't do anything so as to cure our baby. So when my grandmother noticed that a lot of her grandchildren were dying, and before she could know who was causing this, my grandmother was found dead in her bedroom. And with the death of our grandmother, then the family was left without anyone to defend it against my mother's charms. This is what my mom told me the day that she confessed everything that she did. When my cousin brother was born, our uncle and his wife came to the village as per our custom to show the baby to the rest of our family members. My mother said that when she held our cousin brother in her arms, she then had a vision, and in that vision she saw what my cousin brother's future was going to be like. And she said that she saw my cousin brother who was walking on a road, but on the road that my cousin brother was walking on, the road was paved with stones that were all over the place. And when she picked up one stone, she then realized that these stones, they were not normal stones, but they were precious stones representing a very blessed life. And that is when my mother decided to steal those blessings from my cousin brother and to give those blessings to me. But this didn't happen in one day. It took my parents many years for them to successfully transfer that gift from my brother and give that gift to me. The way that they did this is that my mother was given some charms, and those charms, even now, she still have those charms. When my mom was given those charms, after using them, she was supposed to throw them away. But my mom, she still have those charms, and she has refused to throw them away. Whenever I try to speak with her and whenever I try to convince her to throw away those charms, but she has refused. So those charms that my mom was given by her witch doctor, those charms can make my mother transform herself into a very small human being. And when she has transformed herself into that very small human being, she can do whatever she wants when she wants to bewitch someone. So after she was given those charms, she left the village and she went to the capital city where my uncle, his wife, and his family were staying. But my mother first went and stayed with her relatives. But when she was staying with them, their neighbor's child became so ill. My mom told me that the child nearly died because of nyengerekezi, that charm that she has in her body. But she could not confess this to her relatives. She could not say that it was a charm that was making the baby to fall ill. And another thing that was stopping my mom from bewitching my cousin brother in time was that the landlord at night, what the landlord used to do was that the landlord would go around the yard with a bucket of water, praying whilst sprinkling the water around. So my mom said that when she would wake up and transform herself into that creature, when she would get out of the house, she would see that the whole yard would be surrounded by an ocean. So she failed to find a way until one night the landlord went to a funeral. Then my mom, when she woke up, when she got outside, she managed to find a way out of the house. Then she went to bewitch my cousin brother. When she arrived there, she entered into my cousin brother's bedroom and placed some charms on him and returned back to the village. But my mom found out that the ancestors were still protecting my cousin brothers. So what my mother, father, and their witch doctor planned to do was that they said that they will put some charms in the grains and pretend to take the food to my uncle as if they really loved him. This food, it was from the village. It was in form of maize grains, peanut butter, and stuff like that. And the charms were put in the food so that when my cousin will be eating the food, his spirit will be weakened. After that was done, I was sent to stay with my uncle so that the gifts can be then transferred to me. When I arrived there one night, when me and my cousin were fast asleep, I had a dream, and in my dreams, it was me and my cousin brother. We were walking in an ancient forest. As we were walking, we saw a very old man who walked towards us, but he looked like he was a hunter, and he had his hunting weapons. This old man was our ancestors, and there in our dreams, we knew that this old man, he was our ancestors. So he then chose to give his weapons to my brother, but because my brother was so weakened by the poisonous food that he had been eating for a very long time, he felt to stretch out his hands so that he can accept the spear and the bow and the arrow that he was being handed to by that old man. When I saw that my cousin brother, he was too weak, I then stepped in front of him and I accepted those weapons, and then our ancestors, after handing me those weapons, he then disappeared. From that day, I then started to experience a lot of good luck. My mother said that just like our ancestors who used to go into the forest and hunt big game, so shall it be so with me. But now we no longer hunt animals, but we hunt money. This is the prayer that I was taught to say whenever I'll be pouring beer on our ancestors' grave. This is what I say. Oh, our ancestors, in your time, you used to go into the forest, chase after big game and hunt big game. But now the world that we are living in, it is very different from the world that you know. So please help me not to hunt wild animals, but please help me to hunt money, because the world that we are living in, it is very different from the world that you knew. This is the prayer that I was taught by my mother to say whenever I am pouring beer on top of my ancestors' grave. It doesn't matter, my brother. Even today, if you were to take all of my riches away from me, even if I go to any land that I can go to, I will become so successful in life because of the gift that was stolen from my cousin brother. So after all of the rituals were performed, then after the dream, my cousin brother became mentally ill, and even now his life is stuck in one position because of his condition. Recently, I was in the process of purchasing a Toyota GD6 for my father who is back in Zim. But after signing all of the paperwork, I then had a very bad guilty feeling. It's like a voice just spoke to me, and the voice said to me, all of this wealth, it is not yours, for it belongs to your brother. Then that voice just went silent. But that voice that spoke to me, it left such a guilty feeling that I told those guys at the dealership that I would come back and collect that car. I felt so guilty to even drive that car, because when we had gone there, I was with my driver. What I had planned to do was that I was going to drive the car back home, and my driver will be just behind me driving my car. But the guilty feeling that was left in my heart by that little voice was just too much, so I pretended as if I wanted to rush to a meeting. The thing that terrifies me the most is that there is this ritual that I can't even perform yet, and this ritual, I am still dependent so much upon my mother for it to be performed. If she was to die today, then what, my brother? But my mother and that witch doctor, they've both promised me that even if my mom was to die today, the witch doctor and my father will keep on assisting me so that the gifts will not be returned back to the ancestors. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received a couple of days ago. Then I had to ask one of our admins to give us a translation.